My hands were still trembling when I opened my online banking app that Tuesday morning and saw the balance, or what was left of it, $45,000. Gone. Just like that. The retirement fund I'd been building for 37 years. The money I'd saved from every paycheck, every overtime shift at the plant, every birthday check I never spent on myself, vanished into thin air. And the worst part, I knew exactly where it went. My son-in-law Michael had the account information. I'd given it to him myself 6 months earlier when my daughter Emma asked me to add him as an authorized user, just in case something happened to me. Just in case I needed help managing things as I got older. That's what she said. That's what I believed. I'm 72 years old now, and I've seen a lot in my time on this earth. I raised Emma by myself after her mother passed when she was just 9 years old. Cancer took my wife Sarah fast 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. I worked double shifts at the manufacturing plant, came home smelling like machine oil and sweat, made dinner from whatever was in the pantry, helped with homework at the kitchen table, under that flickering fluorescent light. I wasn't perfect. I burned the mac and cheese more times than I can count. I forgot about picture day once, and Emma had to pose in her paint-stained art class shirt. But I showed up. Every single day, I showed up. Emma grew up strong and independent, just like her mother. She went to college on scholarships I helped supplement with overtime pay. She became a teacher, married Michael when she was 28, and they had 2 beautiful children, my grandkids, Sophia and Lucas. I loved those kids like they were my own. Still do, even though everything that's happened since. Michael seemed like a good man at first. He had a steady job in sales, dressed nice, said the right things at family dinners. He called me Pops from the very beginning, which made me feel included, like I was gaining a son instead of losing a daughter. But looking back now, with the clarity that only betrayal can bring, I see the signs I missed. The way he'd steer conversations away whenever I asked about their finances, how he'd check his phone constantly during our Sunday dinners, his face tight with stress. He'd never explain. The expensive purchases that appeared in their home, new furniture, a bigger television, that boat he bought last summer, all while Emma kept talking about how tight money was, how they were struggling with the mortgage. 6 months ago, Emma came to me with tears in her eyes. She sat at my kitchen table, the same one where I'd helped her with algebra homework 25 years earlier, and she said they were in trouble. Michael's sales commissions had dropped. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage. The bank was sending letters. They might lose the house. My grandchildren might lose their home. What could I do? I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. When your family needs help, you help tame. That's what family means. I didn't have $45,000 in cash to give them, but I had it saved, tucked away in my retirement account, earning its modest interest. Emma asked if Michael could have access to the account just to make withdrawals if they needed help with bills while they got back on their feet. She promised it would only be for emergencies, small amounts, temporary help until Michael's commissions picked back up. I trusted my daughter, and because I trusted her, I trusted him. I went to the bank that very afternoon. The teller was a young woman named Jennifer who'd helped me before. She walked me through the paperwork to add Michael as an authorized user on my savings account. She asked me twice if I was sure. She said sometimes families take advantage of elderly account holders. I remember feeling almost insulted. This wasn't some stranger. This was my son-in-law, my daughter's husband, the father of my grandchildren. I signed the papers. I gave him access to everything I'd worked for. For the first few months, nothing seemed wrong. Michael would take out $500 here, $1,000 there, always with a text message explanation. Thanks, Pops. This covers Sophia's dentist appointment. Or really appreciate it. This gets us caught up on the electric bill. I'd check my balance every week, watch it tick down slowly, but it felt good to help. It felt like I was still useful, still a provider, still a father who could solve problems for his daughter. Then the withdrawals got bigger. $2,000, 5-2s, another $3,000. I called Emma to ask about it. She sounded tired on the phone, distracted. She said Michael was handling the finances, that everything was under control, that they'd pay me back as soon as his big commission check came through. There was always a big commission check coming through. It never did. Last month, I noticed something strange. I drove past their house on my way to the grocery store. I lived just 10 minutes away, in the same neighborhood where I raised Emma. There was a new car in the driveway. Not used. Brand new. One of those luxury SUVs with the fancy wheels and the pristine paint job that catches the sunlight just so. I slowed down, confused. Emma had told me just 3 weeks earlier that they couldn't afford new tires for her old sedan. But there it was, gleaming, expensive, parked right there like a slap in the face. I didn't say anything at first. I told myself there must be an explanation. Maybe it was a company car. Maybe Michael's job gave it to him. Maybe his commissions finally came through, and they'd pay me back any day now. I wanted to believe the best. I've always wanted to believe the best in people, especially people I love. But that Tuesday morning, when I opened my banking app during my usual breakfast routine, black coffee, wheat toast, the morning news playing on the radio, and saw that balance, something inside me shifted. The account showed $42.17. Everything else was gone. $45,000, give or take a few hundred, withdrawn over 6 months, but accelerating dramatically in the final 3 weeks. The last withdrawal had been processed just 2 days earlier. $7,000 gone. My coffee went cold in my hand. That old clock on the wall kept ticking, the same clock Sarah and I bought at an estate sale 30 years ago, the one that had marked every dinner, every birthday, every quiet evening of my life. Its sound felt different now. Each tick felt like a countdown. Each tuck felt like a door closing. I sat there in my small kitchen, surrounded by the accumulated comfort of decades, the chipped counter tiles I'd never bothered to replace, the refrigerator covered in my grandchildren's artwork, the worn linoleum floor I'd mopped 1,000 times, and I felt something I hadn't felt since Sarah died. Complete and total isolation. I called the bank immediately. My hands shook so badly I could barely dial. Jennifer answered, recognized my voice, and her tone changed instantly when I told her what happened. She pulled up my account. She confirmed what I already knew. Every withdrawal was legitimate. Michael was an authorized user. He had every legal right to take that money. The bank couldn't do anything. It wasn't theft in the eyes of the law. It was authorized access. My own signature on those papers 6 months ago had made it all perfectly legal. I'm so sorry, Mr. Peterson, Jennifer said, and I could hear the genuine sympathy in her voice. This happens more often than you'd think. Family members with access to accounts. We tried to warn people, but ... double quotes. She trailed off. What else was there to say? I'd been warned. I'd ignored it. I'd trusted family over common sense. I called Emma next. My daughter, the little girl I'd raised alone, sacrificed everything for, loved with every fiber of my being. She answered on the 4th ring. I could hear the kids in the background, laughing about something. Normal family sounds, happy sounds. It made what I had to say even harder. Emma, I need to talk to you about the bank account, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause, a long pause, too long. What about it, Dad? It's empty. Everything's gone. $45,000. Another pause, longer this time. Dad, Michael's been handling that. We've had a lot of expenses. Emma, that was my retirement money. Everything I've saved. You said it was for emergencies, small amounts. Her voice got defensive then, sharp, in a way I wasn't used to hearing from her. We've had emergencies. Dad, you don't understand how expensive it is to raise kids these days. The mortgage, the car payments, Sophia's braces, Lucas's soccer league. It all adds up. I saw the new SUV in your driveway. Silence. Dead silence. Then, quietly, almost coldly, Michael needed a reliable vehicle for work. His old car was breaking down constantly. It's an investment in his career. An investment? With my retirement money? Dad, you said we could use it to get back on our feet. That's what we're doing. Michael says his big commission is coming next month. We'll start paying you back then. Something crystallized in that moment. Hearing my daughter defend taking everything I had to buy a luxury car. This wasn't about emergencies anymore. This wasn't about helping family through a rough patch. This was something else entirely. Something I hadn't wanted to see. Emma, I need that money back. That's everything I have. My savings. My safety net. If something happens to me, if he gets sick, if the house needs repairs, she cut me off. You have Social Security? Dad, you have your pension from the plant. You'll be fine. We have kids to support. You're just one person. We're a family. A family. Just one person. Those 3 words hit me harder than anything else she'd said. After everything I'd done, everything I'd sacrificed, I was just one person, not part of their family, not a priority, just an old man who'd served his purpose and could now be dismissed. I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking worse than before. I sat in that kitchen chair for hours, watching the sunlight move across the floor, listening to that old clock tick away the afternoon. I thought about calling her back, apologizing, trying to smooth things over like I'd done so many times before when there was friction between us. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was finally reaching the limit of what I could tolerate. Maybe it was just being tired of making myself smaller to make other people comfortable. That evening, I remembered something important, something that changed everything. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The house Emma and Michael lived in wasn't really theirs. Not entirely. I'd forgotten about it in the shock of discovering the empty account. But the memory came rushing back as I sat in my darkening kitchen that Tuesday evening. 8 years ago, when Emma and Michael were first married and scraping by on teacher and entry-level sales salaries, they'd fallen in love with a house in the neighborhood. A nice 3-bedroom colonial with a big backyard for the grandkids they were planning to have, but they couldn't qualify for the full mortgage. Their credit wasn't quite good enough. Their income wasn't quite high enough. The bank wanted a cosigner. I'd been that cosigner. I'd put my own house up as collateral. I'd signed on the dotted line, legally binding myself to their mortgage, because Emma asked me to, and because I wanted to help them build a life. If they defaulted, I'd lose my home. But I trusted them. I trusted my daughter. More than that, and this was the detail that had slipped my mind over the years, I'd made a significant down payment, $30,000 from my savings at the time, money I'd been setting aside for my own eventual retirement. Emma and Michael had promised to pay me back within 5 years. They'd never paid back a single dollar. I'd let it go. What mattered was they had a home. What mattered was my grandchildren had a stable place to grow up. But legally, that down payment made me a part owner of the property. I'd reviewed the paperwork with a real estate attorney back then to protect my interest. My name was on the deed, alongside theirs. I owned roughly 25% of the house, based on that down payment and my role as cosigner taking on the mortgage risk. I'd forgotten because I'd never thought of it as my house. It was Emma's house. It was where my grandchildren lived. I'd never imagined a scenario where I'd need to remember my legal rights. But this was that scenario. I spent that entire evening in my small home office, digging through filing cabinets, searching for the original mortgage documents and deed paperwork. I found them in a folder marked Emma's house in my careful, old-fashioned handwriting. I spread the papers across my desk under the lamp Sarah had given me 20 years ago for Father's Day. I read through every line, every clause, every legal term, and there it was, clear as day. My name on the deed, my financial stake in the property, my legal rights as a... I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking through everything that had happened, everything I'd given, everything that had been taken. The money was gone. I knew that. Even if I sued them, even if he won, you can't get blood from a stone. If they'd spent $45,000 on cars and furniture and living beyond their means, there was nothing to recover. But the house was different. The house was leverage. Wednesday morning arrived with rain pattering against my windows. I made my coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and did something I hadn't done in years. I called a lawyer. Not for divorce or estate planning or any of the normal reasons older folks need attorneys. I called one because my family had stolen from me and I needed to understand my options. The lawyer's name was Patricia Chun. She'd handled the real estate paperwork when I'd bought my own house decades ago, and I'd kept her business card in my wallet all these years. She remembered me. She listened patiently as I explained everything: the authorized user agreement, the empty retirement account, the down payment I'd made 8 years ago, the deed with my name on it. When I finished, there was a moment of silence on the line. Then, she said something that would change everything. "Mr. Peterson, you have options. As a co-owner on the deed and co-signer on the mortgage, you have certain legal rights. If you wanted to exercise those rights, you could force a sale of the property to recover your investment, or you could demand they buy out your share at current market value. Given what you've told me about the money they took from your retirement account, you'd be well within your rights to take action. Force a sale, buy out my share, legal rights. The words felt foreign in my mouth when I thought about using them against my own daughter, but they also felt like power, like finally having some control in a situation where I'd felt completely helpless. Patricia continued, her voice professional but kind. I have to ask, Mr. Peterson, are you sure you want to go down this road? These actions can cause permanent damage to family relationships. Once you start legal proceedings against your daughter and son-in-law, there's usually no going back to how things were. I looked around my kitchen, at the evidence of my modest life, at the empty spaces where I'd once imagined retirement would be comfortable, at the future I'd planned that was now impossible because my son-in-law had stolen everything and my daughter had defended him. There's already no going back, Miss Chun, I said quietly. They made sure of that when they took my retirement. We scheduled an appointment for Thursday afternoon. Patricia would review all my documents and prepare a formal demand letter. But she suggested something else first. Before going the legal route, before burning bridges that could never be rebuilt, I should give them one chance to make things right. One final conversation where I laid out the facts and gave them the opportunity to return what they'd taken or face consequences. It was the reasonable thing to do, the fair thing. Even though fairness hadn't been extended to me, I decided to go to their house that evening. Wednesday evening. I'd talk to them both, show them I knew what they'd done, and give them a chance to fix it before lawyers got involved. Part of me hoped Emma would apologize, would realize what they'd done, would promise to make it right somehow. Part of me still wanted to believe my daughter was the person I'd raised her to be. But I wasn't naive anymore. I'd learned too much in the past 36 hours. I arrived at their house around 6:30, right after I knew they'd be done with dinner. The rain had stopped, but everything was wet, reflective. The streetlights casting long shadows across their driveway where that new SUV sat. $45,000. That's what I thought every time I looked at it. That's my retirement, sitting there with its fancy wheels and leather interior. Emma answered the door. She looked surprised to see me. We hadn't spoken since our phone call the day before. Dad, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you and Michael. It's important. She hesitated, then stepped aside to let me in. The house looked different somehow. New throw pillows on the couch, a new coffee table, new artwork on the walls. How much of my retirement money was I looking at? How many new possessions had they bought while I'd been worried about having enough to pay for medication and heating bills? Michael appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Hey, Pops, this is a surprise. Want some coffee? No, thank you, Michael. I need to talk to both of you about something serious. The temperature in the room changed instantly. Emma and Michael exchanged a look. They sat down on their new couch. I remained standing. I'd spent the whole drive over rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd say it, trying to find words that were firm but not aggressive, clear but not cruel. I spoke with my lawyer today, I began, about the money that was taken from my retirement account. Taken. Michael's eyebrows shot up. Pops, we didn't take anything. You gave us access. We've been using it exactly like we discussed, for family expenses. $45,000. Michael, you took $45,000. That wasn't for expenses. That was my entire retirement savings. Emma jumped in, her voice already defensive. Dad, we've been over this. We have bills. We have kids. You said we could use the account to get back on our feet. I said, emergencies, small amount. Not buying luxury vehicles and new furniture while telling me you're struggling. Michael stood up then, his jaw tight. That car is for work. I need to look professional for clients. And, what? Furniture. These are just normal household items. Pops, you're making it sound like we're living in a mansion. You spent everything I had. Everything. Do you understand what that means? I'm 72 years old. I can't go back to work. That money was supposed to last me the rest of my life. And now it's gone because you. Because we what? Michael stepped closer, and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Something hard and calculating. Because we used money you gave us access to. Money you offered to help us with. You can't give someone access to your account and then cry theft when they use it. That's not how it works. Pops. The way he said Pops now sounded different. Mocking. Dismissive. I took a breath, steadied myself. You're right. Legally, you didn't steal. You had authorized access, but morally, Michael, you took advantage of an old man who trusted his family. You took everything I had worked my entire life to save. Emma's face was red, now, tears starting to form. But they weren't tears of regret, they were tears of anger. This is unbelievable, Dad. After everything we've done for you, you come into our house and accuse us of being thieves. Everything you've done for me. The words came out sharper than I intended. What exactly have you done for me, Emma? We include you in everything. You see the kids every week. You're a part of this family. I was part of this family until you decided my retirement savings was your personal bank. A countess. The shouting brought the kids. Sophia appeared at the top of the stairs, 10 years old and frightened. Grandpa, why are you yelling? Everything stopped. Emma rushed to the stairs. Honey, go back to your room. Grandpa and Mommy are just talking. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. Sophia knew it. I knew it. We all, que no italiano. I lowered my voice, forced myself to speak calmly. I didn't come here to yell. I came here to give you a chance to make this right. Return the money, or work out a payment plan, or something. But if you can't do that, I need you to know that I have options too. Options. Michael crossed his arms. What options? This house. The house I co-signed for. The house I made a $30,000 down payment on 8 years ago. The house that has my name on the deed as a part owner. Emma's face went white. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you can't return my retirement money, I'll be forced to exercise my legal rights as I can demand you buy out my share at current market value, or I can force a sale of the property and take my portion of the proceeds. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's face went through several emotions: shock, anger, calculation, and finally something like fear. Emma just stared at me like I was a stranger. You wouldn't, she whispered. You wouldn't do that to your own grandchildren. Where would we go? And there it was, the emotional blackmail I'd expected, using my love for Sophia and Lucas as a weapon against me. But I'd prepared for this. I'd spent the whole previous night thinking through this exact argument. Where would you go? I repeated slowly. Maybe somewhere you can actually afford. Maybe somewhere within your means instead of living off your elderly father's retirement savings. This house is too expensive for you. It always has been. That's why you needed my down payment. That's why you needed me to co-sign. That's why you've been draining my account, because you're living beyond your means, and instead of adjusting your lifestyle, you decided to steal from me. We didn't steal. Michael started, but I cut him off. You took $45,000 from a 72-year-old man's retirement account. You call it whatever helps you sleep at night. Michael, I call it theft. And if you don't make it right, I will use every legal option I have to recover what I can. That includes this house. I turned to leave then, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I'd never stood up to my daughter like that. I'd never threatened legal action against my family. It felt terrible and empowering at the same time. Emma's voice stopped me at the door. Dad? Wait, please. Can we talk about this? Maybe there's a solution. We're not seeing Primera turn back. She looked genuinely scared now. Michael looked furious, but Emma looked scared. There is a solution, Emma. Return my money. All of it. Work out a payment plan if you have to. Sell that SUV, if necessary, but give me back what you took. We can't, she said quietly. We don't have it. It's spent, then you have a problem. Because I'm not going away, and I'm not letting you off the hook. I'll give you 1 week to figure something out. 1 week to talk to a financial advisor, or take out a loan, or sell assets, or whatever you need to do. But 1 week from today, if I don't have a concrete plan for repayment, I'm filing legal papers to force the sale of this house. My lawyer already has all the documents ready. I left. I walked out of that house, past that expensive SUV, through the wet streets back to my car parked 2 blocks away. My whole body was shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline, from finally standing up for myself, from finally drawing a line. I drove home in a daze, barely remembering the route I'd driven thousands of times. When I got back to my small house, I sat in my car in the driveway for 20 minutes, just breathing, just processing what had happened. I'd threatened to force my daughter and grandchildren out of their home. Me, the man who'd spent his whole life sacrificing for family. But what choice did they leave me? What choice did I have when kindness was mistaken for weakness and generosity was exploited as stupidity? That night, I barely slept again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sophia's frightened face at the top of those stairs. I heard Emma's voice saying, "You wouldn't do that to your own grandchildren." I felt the weight of being 72 years old with $42 in my retirement account. But I also felt something new. Something I hadn't felt in the 48 hours since discovering the theft. I felt like I had power again. Like I wasn't just a victim. Like there was a path forward, even if it was painful. Thursday morning, I went to my appointment with Patricia Chun. I brought all my documents, the original mortgage paperwork, the deed showing my ownership stake, the bank statements showing the systematic draining of my retirement account. She reviewed everything carefully, making notes on her yellow legal pad. "You have a strong case," she said finally. "Your ownership stake is clear. Your financial loss is documented. If they don't cooperate, we can file within the week to force a sale or demand a buyout. I need to warn you though, Mr. Peterson, this will get ugly. They'll fight it. They'll hire their own lawyer. They'll make accusations about your mental capacity, about your intentions, about your fitness as a grandfather. Are you prepared for that? Was I prepared for my daughter to fight me in court? To question my mental capacity? To paint me as a vindictive old man trying to hurt his grandchildren? No, I wasn't prepared for that. But I also wasn't prepared to spend the rest of my life with no savings because I'd been too afraid to stand up for myself. Do whatever you need to do, I told Patricia. Prepare the papers. If they don't come up with a solution by next Wednesday, file them. She nodded, already making notes. I'll draft a formal demand letter today. We'll send it certified mail so there's a paper trail. The letter will outline your position, your ownership rights, and give them 10 days to respond with either repayment or a buyout offer for your share. After that, if there's no acceptable response, we proceed with legal action. I left her office feeling simultaneously relieved and sick. This was really happening. I was really taking legal action against my own daughter. But what else could I do? Roll over. Accept being stolen from. Spend my final years in poverty because I was too polite to fight back. The next few days were quiet, eerily quiet. No calls from Emma. No texts. No attempts at reconciliation or negotiation. I wondered if they were consulting their own lawyer. I wondered if they were figuring out how to pay me back. I wondered if they even cared. Then Monday morning, 5 days after my confrontation with them, I got a text message from Emma. Emma, it said, "Dad, please come to dinner tonight, 6 p.m. We want to talk about solutions. No fighting, just talking." I stared at that message for a long time. Was it genuine? Was it a trap? Was it another attempt to manipulate me into backing down? But I'd said I wanted them to find a solution. If they were trying, I had to at least listen. Primera texted Bach, "I'll be there." That evening, I drove to their house for the second time in less than a week. The sun was setting, casting that golden light that makes everything look peaceful and normal. Their house looked the same. That SUV was still in the driveway, but something felt different. I couldn't put my finger on it. Emma answered the door immediately, like she'd been watching for me. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Thanks for coming, Dad." Michael's in the living room. The kids are at my sister-in-law's for the evening. We wanted to talk without distractions. I followed her inside. Michael stood as I entered, and to my surprise, he extended his hand. I shook it cautiously. We sat down them on their couch, me in the armchair across from them. "Pops," Michael began, and his voice was different now, subdued, less cocky. "We've spent the last few days really thinking about everything, talking to financial advisors, looking at our options, and you're right, we messed up. I messed up." I stayed silent, waiting. Emma took over. "Dad, we owe you an apology. A real one, not an excuse or a justification. What we did was wrong. We took advantage of your trust. We spent money that wasn't ours to spend, and we tried to justify it by saying it was for family, but that's not good enough. Your family too. And we treated you like you didn't matter." Michael nodded. "We got in over our heads financially. The house payment, the car payments, keeping up with ... everything. And instead of downsizing or making hard choices, we took the easy way out. We took your money, and that was theft. You were right to call it that." I felt something loosen in my chest. Just a little. They were acknowledging it. "Finally. So here's what we've figured out. Emma continued. She pulled out a folder from the coffee table. We met with a financial advisor. We looked at refinancing. We looked at home equity. We looked at everything. And the truth is, we can't pay you back $45,000. Not anytime soon. We don't have it. The looseness in my chest tightened again. Of course they didn't have it. I'd already known that. But, Michael said quickly, we do have equity in this house. It's appreciated a lot in 8 years. We bought it for $300,000. It's worth about $450 now. We owe about $220 on the mortgage. That means there's about $230,000 in equity. He pulled out papers from the folder, spread them on the coffee table. Your lawyer's letter said you own approximately 25% based on your down payment and cosigner status. 25% of current equity would be about $57,000. I looked at the numbers. They were accurate. We can't buy you out, Emma said, her voice cracking slightly. We don't have $57,000, but we've decided to sell the house. The words hung in the air. You're selling. I couldn't keep the surprise out of my voice. Michael nodded. It's the only way to make this right. We sell the house. After the mortgage is paid off and all the fees, we'll have about $200,000 left. We'll give you your 25%, which is $50,000. That covers most of what we took from your retirement account. It's not perfect, but it's what we can do. What about you? Primera, ask it. Where will you live? Emma smiled sadly. We'll rent for a while, find something smaller, cheaper, maybe get our finances actually under control for once. The kids will adjust. And honestly, Dad, this house was always too much for us. You were right about that. We were living beyond our means, trying to keep up with ... I don't know. Some image of what we thought success should look like. I looked at them both. At my daughter who'd been willing to defend stealing from me just 5 days ago. At my son-in-law who'd drained my retirement account without a second thought. They looked different now. Humbled, scared, but also maybe more honest than they'd been in years. When would this happen? I asked. We're meeting with a realtor tomorrow, Michael said. The advisor said houses in this neighborhood are selling fast. We could be closed in 60 days, maybe 90. You'd have your money by early spring. It wasn't everything. It wasn't immediate. But it was something. It was acknowledgement. It was action. It was more than I'd expected to get when I walked in here tonight. I need something in writing, I said. A formal agreement that you're selling the house, that my share will be $50,000, and a timeline. I need my lawyer to review it before I agree to anything. Of course, Emma said immediately. We'll have our realtor draw up something official. And Dad ... I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what we did. For how I talked to you. For using the kids as a weapon. That was wrong, Michael added. I got greedy. Pops, I saw your account as a solution to all our problems instead of what it really was, your life savings that you trusted us with. I betrayed that trust. I know saying sorry doesn't fix it, but I am sorry. I sat with that for a moment. The apology, the plan, the acknowledgement of wrongdoing. It wasn't perfect. Part of me was still angry, still hurt, still couldn't believe it had come to this. But another part of me, the part that had raised Emma alone, that had loved her through everything, wanted to believe this was real change. I'll need to see that paperwork, I said finally. And I'm keeping my lawyer involved until everything is finalized. But if you're serious about this, if you actually sell the house and give me my share, then we can start rebuilding trust. It won't be instant. It won't be easy. But we can try. Emma started crying then. Real tears. Not angry tears. Like before. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for giving us a chance to make this right. I left their house that night feeling different than I had the last time. Not triumphant. Exactly. Not happy, but maybe hopeful. Maybe like this terrible situation might have a path forward after all. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. But little did I know, the real shock was still coming the next day. Tuesday morning, I got a call from Patricia Chun. Her voice was urgent. Mr. Peterson, I need you to come to my office immediately. Something's happened. My heart sank. What happened? I'd rather explain in person. How soon can you get here? 20 minutes later, I was sitting in her office, watching her face as she explained what she'd discovered. I did some routine due diligence this morning after receiving Emma's email about their plan to sell the house. I wanted to verify the equity numbers they gave you were accurate, so I pulled a current title report on the property. She turned her computer screen toward me. Mr. Peterson, there are liens on the property. Multiple liens, credit cards, a personal loan, and a second mortgage you probably don't know about. The property isn't worth what they told you. The actual equity after all debts is about $80,000. Your 25% of that would be $20,000, not $50,000. I stared at the screen, not understanding at first. But, they said, they showed me papers. The financial advisor ... Either they lied or they didn't disclose the full debt situation to their advisor. Based on these liens, they've been using the house as collateral for debt for at least 3 years. They're in much worse financial shape than they told you. The room felt like it was spinning. They'd lied again. Even in their apology, even in their plan to make things right, they'd lied about how much money I'd actually get back. There's more, Patricia said gently. One of these liens is from a lawsuit. Apparently, Michael's company sued him 8 months ago for misappropriation of client funds. There's a judgment against him for $35,000. That judgment attaches to any property he owns. Misappropriation of funds, stealing from clients. This wasn't just about my money anymore. This was a pattern. Michael was a thief, and my daughter had either known about it and helped cover it up, or she'd been blind to who she married. What are my options now? I asked, my voice hollow. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Honestly, not great. Even if you force a sale, by the time all the liens and debts are paid, there might only be $20,000 or $30,000 left in equity. If that, your share would be $5,000 to $7,000. That's a far cry from the $45,000 they took from you. So I'm just out that money forever. In terms of recovery from the house sale, probably yes. But you have another option. You could file a personal lawsuit against them for elder financial abuse, with documented evidence of the withdrawals, your age, their pattern of deception, and Michael's history of financial impropriety. You might have a case. But, again, you can't get money from people who don't have money. Even if you won a judgment, collecting it would be nearly impossible. I sat there, absorbing this. Every time I thought I'd hit bottom, there was another level down. They'd stolen from me. They'd lied about making it right. They'd hidden the true extent of their financial disaster. And now I was finding out my son-in-law was not just irresponsible but potentially criminal. What would you do? I asked Patricia. If this was your family. She was quiet for a moment. Honestly, Mr. Peterson, I'd walk away. Not from your legal rights. I think you should absolutely force the sale and take whatever small amount you can recover, but I'd walk away from expecting them to be honest, expecting them to change, expecting them to treat you with the respect and dignity you deserve. Some people are who they are, and sometimes family hurts us worse than strangers ever could, because we keep giving them chances they don't deserve. I left her office with copies of the title report and lien documents. I sat in my car in the parking lot for a long time, looking at the proof of my daughter's continued deception, the proof that even her apology had been built on lies, the proof that I'd raised a child who could look me in the eye, say she was sorry, and then lie about the one thing that might have made the apology mean something. That evening, I did something I hadn't done since Sarah died. I called my younger brother Tom. He lived 3 states away, and we weren't particularly close anymore. Life had taken us in different directions, but he was family. Real family. The kind that doesn't steal from you. Tom, it's me. I need to tell you what's been happening. ... I spent an hour on the phone, telling him everything. The retirement account, the discovery, the confrontation, the supposed plan to sell, the new discovery about the lies and liens and Michael's lawsuit. Tom listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. When I finished, there was a long pause. Jesus, Danny, he said finally, using the nickname no one else used anymore. I don't even know what to say. What are you going to do? I don't know. Force the sale, I guess. Get whatever scraps I can. Try to rebuild some kind of savings from Social Security and my pension. Live carefully. Die poor, probably. Or you could come stay with me for a while. The offer surprised me. What? Come stay with us. Lisa and I have that guest house in the back. It's small, but it's private. Stay a few months. Get your head straight. Get away from this mess. You don't need to be around that toxicity while you're trying to heal from it. I hadn't cried since Sarah's funeral, but sitting in that parking lot, listening to my estranged brother offer me refuge, I felt tears coming. Tom, I couldn't. You could, and you should. You need family right now. Real family. Come stay with us. Take a break from all this. Let your lawyer handle the legal stuff long distance. You don't need to be there for every painful moment. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. Let me think about it. Don't think too long. Danny, sometimes the right move is to just get the hell out of a bad situation. That night, I looked around my small house, the house I'd lived in for 30 years, the house where I'd raised Emma, the house filled with memories of Sarah, of birthdays, of quiet evenings, and loud celebrations, the house that suddenly felt less like home and more like a prison of painful memories. Maybe Tom was right. Maybe I needed to get away. But first, I had one more thing to do. Wednesday morning, I drove to Emma's house one final time. I brought copies of the title report, the lien documents, everything Patricia had discovered. Emma answered the door in her bathrobe, clearly not expecting company. Dad, what are you doing here so early? I walked past her into the house. Michael was in the kitchen making coffee. He froze when he saw me. We need to talk, I said, and I put the documents on their kitchen counter. My lawyer pulled a current title report on this house. Want to explain to me why you lied about the equity? Want to explain the liens? The second mortgage? The lawsuit judgment against you, Michael? The color drained from both their faces. Dad, I can explain, Emma started, but I held up my hand. No more explanations. No more excuses. No more lies. No more lies. Here's what's going to happen. I'm instructing my lawyer to force an immediate sale of this property. You have 30 days to vacate. Whatever money is left after all debts and liens are paid, I'm taking my legal share. My lawyer estimates that'll be about $5,000 to $7,000. Not the $50,000 you promised me. Not the $45,000 you stole. $5,000 to $7,000. Pops, please. Michael tried, but I cut him off. Don't call me that. Don't ever call me that again. You're a thief, Michael, not just from me. Your own company sued you for stealing. You're a criminal who stole from an old man because you thought I was too weak or too stupid to fight back. You were wrong. I turned to Emma, and this was the hardest part. And you, my daughter, I raised you better than this. I raised you to be honest, to be kind, to take care of people weaker than you. Instead, you helped steal from your elderly father and then lied about making it right. I don't know who you've become, Emma, but you're not the person I thought I raised. She was crying now. Dad, please. We made mistakes. We're trying. You're trying to save yourselves. You're trying to get out of consequences. You're not trying to make this right. If you were trying to make it right, you wouldn't have lied to me again about the equity. You wouldn't have hidden the liens and debts. You would have been honest. I gathered the documents back up. My lawyer will be in touch with formal notice. You have 30 days after that notice to vacate the property. I suggest you start looking for a place to rent, somewhere you can actually afford. As I turned to leave, Emma grabbed my arm. Dad, what about the kids? What about Sophia and Lucas? You're going to make your grandchildren homeless? I looked at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. I'm not making anyone homeless, Emma. You did that. You and Michael. When you stole from me. When you lied to me. When you built a life you couldn't afford on money that wasn't yours. This is your consequence, not mine. Yours. I pulled my arm away and walked out of that house for what I knew would be the last time. I didn't look back. I didn't second guess. I just walked to my car and drove away. The next week was a blur of legal paperwork. Patricia filed the motion to force the sale. Emma and Michael hired a lawyer who tried to fight it, claiming I was a vindictive old man weaponizing my cosigner status. But the facts were clear. The documents were clear. The judge ruled in my favor. The house would be sold. They had 45 days to vacate. During those 45 days, I got calls from Emma's friends, from Michael's family, even from some of my old neighbors. They all said the same things. How could I do this to my daughter? How could I make my grandchildren move? How could I be so cruel? I listened politely and said the same thing every time. They stole $45,000 from my retirement account. Asked them how they could do that to their elderly father. Most of them didn't call back after that. I also got calls from Sophia, my granddaughter, crying on the phone, asking why I was making them move. Those calls were the hardest. But I told her the truth, in age-appropriate terms. Sweetie, grown-ups sometimes make bad choices. Your parents made choices they can't afford. They have to find a new house that fits their budget. It's not about you. It's about them learning to be responsible. But why can't you just let us stay? She asked, through tears. Because sometimes, being a grandparent means teaching hard lessons. I love you, Sophia. I always will. But I can't let myself be taken advantage of, even by family. After that call, I cried for 2 hours. But I didn't change my mind. The house sold in 37 days. A nice young couple with a baby. They paid $420,000 less than hoped, but the market had softened slightly. After the mortgage was paid off, after all the liens were satisfied, after the closing costs and fees and Michael's lawsuit judgment, there was $14,000 left. My share as a part owner was approximately $3,500. $3,500 out of $45,000 stolen. I took it. I deposited it in a new bank account at a different bank, with no authorized users. And then I did something I'd been thinking about for weeks. I called Tom back. That offer's still good? For the guest house? He didn't hesitate. Of course it is. When are you coming? Soon as I can pack. I spent 3 days sorting through my life, deciding what to keep, what to sell, what to throw away. 30 years of accumulated living. Pictures of Emma growing up. Her childhood drawings still stuck to my refrigerator with magnets. Awards from school. Newspaper clippings from her college graduation. The evidence of a life spent raising a daughter who grew up to steal from me. I packed the essentials clothes. Sarah's old jewelry box. Pictures of my wife. My important documents. Everything else I either donated or left for the estate sale company. I didn't need much. Just enough to start over. My last night in that house, I stood in the kitchen where I'd cooked thousands of meals, drank thousands of cups of coffee, solved thousands of problems. That old clock on the wall, Sarah's clock, I packed it carefully in bubble wrap. It was coming with me. Some memories were worth keeping. I left on a Tuesday morning, drove 8 hours to Tom and Lisa's place in North Carolina. The guest house was small, like he'd said, 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, sitting area. But